Hey fishing friends, welcome back to eFishin. Today we're going to talk about this little sucker right here. It's a floating fly bobber. Now this one's been beat up a little bit and I need to make a few more, so that's what we're going to do today. And we're going to talk about how to make this thing and a couple of reasons why you want to use a fixed float instead of a slip float on your floating fly. So to get started, the first thing you're going to need is a little pack of these round floats. I like the round ones. You could use a pear one if you want to, but the important thing is you can pick these things up just about anywhere. You can go down to your local big box store and find them in the fishing aisle there. When you go buy your floats at the big box store or get them wherever you can find them, the thing you want to look for is on this float right here, there's this little lead weight right there, and that's important that you get the floats that have the weights on them. Now normally when you throw these things out there and use them, they're going to float in the water and they're just going to sit there just like this. And they're not going to turn on their side or anything. So what we're going to do is we're going to modify this float. So instead of it sitting like this and there's no jig or anything underneath it and it's just sitting in the water, it'll sit like this in the water. And that's important. It gives you a couple of things. So the first thing that does is if this bobber is laying on its side like this, it's letting you know that your little fly is one, it's not suspended underneath it, a fish has got it, or it's laying on the bottom. Now when it's correctly suspended, it's going to sit there just like that in the water. Those fish will come up and they'll come up, they'll grab that fly and they'll swim up with it. And if you don't have the right bobber, your bobber's going to be still floating around and you're not going to see it. Now, with these weighted bobbers like this, when you fix them, they'll turn over on their side like that. So what happens is the fish comes up, grabs it, lifts up, and your bobber turns over. And sometimes that's the only indication that you've had a strike. All right, to get started with our bobber here, the first thing we're going to notice is that this thing's got a seam running right down the middle of it, like that. Okay? So with our Sharpie, we want to make a couple of index marks. We'll do one on one side, and then the next one we'll do on the other side. Now, one other thing you could do is you want to make sure you keep your top and your bottom right. So I'm just going to put a little T on the top of this little plunger here, and we'll also put a little T right here on the bobber too, so that we know that that's the top of the bobber. So after we have that, we've got to disassemble this thing. So we got to take this plunger off, we got to take the weight off and all that. So what we're going to do is we're going to depress this plunger where we have the top of the wire loop there, and then we're just going to take a pair of pliers and we're going to open this up here and straighten it up just like that. Now don't let go of this because it's got a spring in it and it'll shoot out on you if you're not careful. So we're just going to take this, we're going to pull that off like that right there and set that aside. And we're going to take our pliers here and straighten this wire up just a little bit to where it's fairly straight. And then we're going to take that and we're going to pull that out. So we've got our little wire right there. We'll set that aside. And then there's a little spring in here. And you pull that out just like that. Set that aside. So now you've got this piece right here that's got your weight on it. And we're going to take that off. We'll set all this stuff aside. And then we've got this piece right here that's in the foam. And sometimes you have to just take a pair of pliers and twist that thing out of there. Just like that. So we'll want to set that over there with our other pieces. So really, after we do that, we've got just this foam bobber here. So since we've got our center line mark, we're going to take our Sharpie here. Now just be careful with this. We want to cut straight through and make a slice all the way through this bobber. So here we go. So once you cut through, got something that looks like this right here. You just got two foam pieces to your bobber. So now that you got two foam pieces, I like to just clean it up here a little bit. Make sure your hole's still good. And it helps to have a really sharp X-Acto knife. And I don't know that mine's all that sharp. But anyways, once you clean them up there, you're going to want to take your weight. And sometimes it's easier if you put this one of these pieces back in. And then you can set your weight on that. And basically, you're just going to want to squeeze that and make a little indention in that foam there. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my Sharpie and I'm just going to kind of make an outline around this thing just so I know where it's at, because we've got to cut some of that foam out for that weight to set in there. So there we go. We got our lead weight. We're going to set that thing aside now. And we've got our two halves here. So the next thing we're going to do is we're just going to take our Sharpie. We're going to put it kind of in a 45-degree angle. And we're just going to start cutting this foam out. So that lead weight can fit down in there. You don't want to cut too much out. You just kind of got to take your time. And then fit your weight down in there. You want to look to see if it's just about half of it, and that looks about right there. So now we're just going to take the other side and do the same thing. Something like that. And then if we take our two sides and match them back up, mash them things together, I think we're about there. And then you can take it and kind of work it back and forth a little bit to get that weight to go down in there. And I think we're going to take just a little bit more off in here. And then just keep fitting it together and see how it goes back. I think that's going to be pretty good right there, just like that. All right, we've got our two pieces here. We fitted them together here. They look like they're doing pretty good. Something I like to do maybe is take one of these pieces here and just go ahead and stick it back down in the top of your bobber there. And then that way you can fit that piece of lead on there like that right there. And then line it all up. So we've got our hot glue gun ready. Set all this like this. We're just going to take our hot glue gun here And we're going to just dab some hot glue around here. Just like that. And then we're going to take our piece here. We're going to mash it in there together. We're going to make sure we line our pieces up there. We're just going to work it back and forth a little bit to get that glue spread around good, like that. And then I've just got a little clamp. I'm going to clamp that thing just like that, and we're going to let it set for a little while and let it all dry, and we'll be right back when it does. Alright, I think our glue has set up. Our bobber's not coming apart. Alright, so one thing I like to do before I move on is I like to just take a regular Sharpie, and then I just like to color the bottom of my float so that I can tell when I get a lift bite on it. It just adds some contrast to it. So I'll be right back when I get this thing colored in. Alright, here we go. We've got our bobber made up. We've got it colored, so we've got some contrast on it. Well, let's just reassemble this thing. We'll take this piece right here and we'll just stick it back in there. Alright. And then on the top, remember we had this spring right here. So we're going to push that down in there like that. And then we're going to take the top plunger and we're going to set that in there too. Well, first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our wire and we're going to push it all the way through where we've got it back in there, like so. Just like that. Now we'll take this piece. We're just going to push it on there, like that right there. Now, we've got to make a little loop back in this wire. So I've just got a pair of round nose pliers here, but you could use needle nose pliers. I've done it with that. You're just going to grab that thing. Grab it. And just make a loop. And then that should set right back in there like that. Now we've got our bobber. It's back together. We've got a place we can put line on. We're ready to go fishing. Before we go fishing, let's test our bobber here and let's see if we've got a neutral bobber. And we put this thing in there. See how it lays on its side? That's what we want. Let's drop our fly in there with our float and test it. And you can see it sets up with that fly. Now, if you have a fish come in and grab your fly and lift it up, you can see what happens. Your float turns over, and that is a strike indicator. And that's one reason why you want to use a fixed float with float and fly. Alright, there's one more reason why you're going to want to use a fixed bobber on your float and fly. Now, if you can imagine that your fly is sitting here like this in the water, and you pull your float towards you as you're going to retrieve, your fly is going to come up with it, right? Well, when you stop, that fly is going to do a slow pendulum back down to where it's sitting under the bobber. Now, this pull and release is a good retrieve, and sometimes that's the way they like it. They like that, just that slow pendulum down. So there's my bobber and my floating fly for floating fly fishing. You can use it for crappie fishing or other things too. It works well for that too. So anyways, if you guys like this stuff, give it a thumbs up. Maybe hit that subscribe button too, and maybe we'll catch you guys out on the water next time. I'm Rodney. We're out.